Again, thank you for joining us today. This is RFP4 webinar, the information webinar. So we're very excited about, getting through this RFP and making sure that you get the right information to respond to it. My name is Miguel Corcio. I'm the Director of Technical Programs here at CESMII. And today I'm going to be joined by Haresh Markani. He's our CTO, and Howard Goldberg, our COO. And they can do their more introduction when the turn comes. But so today I'm going to go ahead and start my presentation here. Just give me a second. Hopefully it will go the right way. Hold on. And just a second. Share my screen. Screen number 2. There we go. All right, so hopefully you're seeing it. You're seeing the presentation mode. Is it okay, Howard?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. All right, so once again, thank you. We're going to take about 35 minutes to go through the different slides that we have for you. And then we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So with that in mind, let me start with just a general note here. We are hoping that everyone interested in responding to the RFP is going to take the time, obviously, to read the RFP completely. There's a lot of information in there. And if you have participated in the past, you will find that this RFP is very short. But on the other hand, we also have an additional document that you need to read that has all the different informations that typically used to go in the RFP itself. So please make sure you read those documents, and if there's any questions, please submit those questions. Also, we are asking you to provide questions directly to us if you've come across anything that needs to be clarified. We are using the roadmapprojects.info@cesmi.org as our default email for questions and answers. And also, another thing that I wanted to mention is if you find any discrepancies between what you're going to hear today and the RFP itself, or if you find that something is not completely accurate, please let us know immediately. By default, we are following the RFP. That is the official document. So if we say something contrary to that, the RFP is going to take precedence. So just keep that in mind. The RSP is really what we're following, and hopefully there will be no conflicting information that we're going to give you today. All right. As far as the agenda and the topics that we are going to be covering, very briefly, we're going to talk about the mission, the strategy, and roles and objectives of CESMII. We'll talk about a little bit about the strategy for investment and projects. And then we're going to get into the different areas of interest, talk in more detail about the RFP itself. We'll talk about the timeline and the process that we're going to follow for the RFP. I will be mentioning something about the selection criteria and some of the expectations, so you know what CESMII is going to be looking for. We're going to talk also about the different documents, the requirements that we need to receive in order to have a full proposal. And then at the end, Howard will come and talk a little bit about cost sharing, because this is a 50-50 cost share projects or RFP. So it is important that you understand what we're looking for in terms of cost sharing. So that's in general what we're going to be covering today. Also, the webinar will be recorded and it will be posted in our website. So you can always go back and refer to it for any additional information or anything that you might want to review. So with that in mind, I will turn it to Haresh. And Haresh, if you don't mind, do a quick introduction of yourself and then go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to, Miguel. Thank you. Thank you for setting the stage. Haresh Malkani, CTO at CESMII. Happy to be here today. I think this is one of the latest RFP that we've issued. As many of you know, we've issued 3 of these in the past, but it's in alignment with what the Institute's goals are. So if you go back to what our mission is, we are looking for the demonstration of smart manufacturing technologies in manufacturing to improve productivity, energy productivity, and competitiveness. And each of these institutes that we are part of, so we are part of a network of about 16 institutes. Each institute has a focus area. Ours is smart manufacturing. And that includes everything to do with the building blocks like sensing and control, predictive modeling, analytics, but at the same time also the idea around making information available in real time so that all of these decisions can be made by whether it's human beings or by machines. So those are the two goals of the institute, and we have a set of metrics that we adhere to. And so thank you, Miguel. So the top left quadrant shows up the metrics that we are after. And whatever we do in the institute in terms of the project work or internal work that needs to be carried out by the institute has to be geared towards satisfying these metrics. And I won't read all of them. This will be part of your deck, but there are metrics around energy, there are metrics around competitiveness, and cost of deploying smart manufacturing technologies. On the bottom left is a visual of our roadmap, which is sort of our guiding document in terms of how we do things. And when we make an investment, it has to result in financial and labor and energy productivity. It has to be done in a sustainable manner so that we are saving energy and the carbon footprint. We are funded by the Department of Energy, so we have to have that as a goal, and it's the right goal to have. And at the same time, make our supply chains more resilient and digitally savvy through smart manufacturing technologies. So those are the things that outline our roadmap. And nothing goes without saying that things like workforce development and our ecosystem through our partners is as critical for us. And so we drive that culture in our organization, and every member of the organization is very much part of what we do. And so this RFP is another example of how work gets done through the Institute by our members. And one of the things we follow is the bottom right of this, where, when we talk about smart manufacturing, you have to follow some of these first principles, because if you leave one or two out, then you're not successful at demonstrating and deploying and sustaining smart manufacturing systems in your manufacturing environments. So next slide, Miguel. Now, the way we do this is that our roadmap defines different kinds of strategies that you need to employ in order to meet the metrics. But then a lot of this work actually gets done through projects, and we have different flavors. And I won't go through the details, but there are 5 different flavors with 5 different objectives and alignments, right, with the roadmap. The first one is around, filling gaps in the building block technology. So if you said that, hey, I cannot deploy smart manufacturing because I don't have the right kind of sensor that works in this kind of an environment. Well, that's a technical gap. So that, we have to address those. Large energy intensive companies have challenges in deploying technologies that would make their operations energy intensive, and there are gaps there that we help fill. The second one is around advancing the ability to obtain data in real time and make it available for applications that provide value. So this is all about the platform and the capability projects. The third one is around education, workforce development, training. Again, this is a super critical objective for us, and so we have a special category of projects that align with that. And then we have, in the past, we've done several of these innovation projects where they're short-term, 6-month projects, where we're not necessarily developing new technologies, but we are utilizing technologies to make an impact on manufacturers in a short period of time, like 6 months. Not a whole lot of money, but we also have the impact and the metrics and the goals that align with the amount of funding that's available for that. And the last is around the application projects. This is where members come in and say, hey, as part of a membership, I want to be able to use CESMII technologies to demonstrate something at my plant. Typically, these don't have any federal funding, but again, those have been carried out in the past, and we have 3 or 4 examples of that. So just a high-level view of what the different types of projects are. Okay. Next one. If I think this is you, Miguel. Sorry. I think you're muted.
Hold on. Just very quickly, wanted to give an idea of where we are in terms of the different programs and projects that we have. You know, we've been very excited for the last few years because our portfolio project has been growing steadily. And if you see here, you know, we got 54 projects. Harish was mentioning the different types of projects. So here it is, and here's what we have. You know, we have 18 right now in R&D. Harish mentioned how important workforce development is for us. We have 10 projects right now on that one. The platform capability 3, innovation projects, we have 19. And so we're getting a lot of work done through the platform and the different innovation projects. Application projects is the one that is trailing a little bit behind, and that's mainly because all these projects have to be completed, and then the solution and the tools that are developed in those individual projects are the ones that eventually make it to the application side. So this was just to give you a quick idea where we are in terms of the portfolio. Let's move on. That's you, Harish.
Yeah, so one of the things that we are focusing on in our next calendar year, and by the end of 2023, our current cycle of funding for the Institute comes to an end, and our focus going into that year and then beyond that, as we continue as an institute, is to convert outcomes from projects. All the different initiatives that I talked about, they all have outcomes. Those outcomes have to be beneficial to our community, right? Whether we do it as technologies and training content that is available that can benefit the project participants and their respective industries. But at the same time, a lot of these outcomes, the set of outcomes, can be captured in different forms that can then be made available to our general CESMII membership. So at the bottom, you can see that if it's a technology area, then we can make it available through our marketplace and through our platform. Whereas if it's education and training content, then we have a portal for that captures all of the developments that have taken place and make that available to our CESMII members. And so that's our current focus. And in BP5, the RFP4, as well as the continued life of CESMII above and beyond, we'll be focusing on that particular aspect. Next slide. So with this particular RFP, I know this is not a whole lot of money. It's sort of a tail end of our first round of funding, but we do have two specific focus areas, and I'll try to give you a sense of what we're looking for here. So let's talk about the first one, which is on the top left, which is the extended impact projects. The focus here is that we've had several projects, the 54 projects that Miguel was showing, where we've reached a point where they have demonstrated, they've validated certain technologies in a particular industry area or for a particular project, for a particular objective. But if they are at a point where we have an opportunity for them to extend their development, so you can either augment what's already developed, you can implement what's developed, or you can extend those technologies so that we extract a significantly more value out of it. So if you got to the point where you said, oh, if I had just a little bit more, I could actually make a lot more impact in what I'm delivering as a project. So that's the sense that that you should take away from this. And again, we are looking for critical industries like steel, cement, food, chemicals, and then also supply chain. So anything that you see that the Institute has produced, which can be extended into these specific areas, is what we are looking for. Okay, these have to be industrial use cases, so that the validation or deployment or demonstration is taking place at an industrial site. So that's the first part. The second part at the bottom left are again industry demonstration projects, but in this case we are not necessarily developing new technologies or extending them. We are using technologies that are already developed, but we are trying to apply that to supply chains that can include small and medium manufacturers. One of the things that we've been saying is that unless and until small manufacturers become part of the smart manufacturing movement, we will not see competitiveness go up. We will not see large companies being able to leverage the benefits of smart manufacturing completely if their supply chain is lagging behind in these technologies. So that's what we're trying to encourage here. Now we have a platform, we have a marketplace, we've generated some profiles. We're looking for large manufacturers to join hands with small and medium manufacturers and come back to us with proposals where they can say, here's how we will demonstrate the impact of smart manufacturing in a supply chain, right? And again, looking for industry demonstration there. So the flavor is slightly different between part 1 and part 2. There is some overlap, obviously, but again, we don't want to discourage anybody from applying one or the other. And then if it feels like one of the areas is more suitable than the other, then we'll let the teams know in that fashion. So on the right are some guidelines, and these are all posted in the RFP, obviously. When you're talking about impact on the industry, we are looking for, making sure that you have some sort of a baseline so that you mark a metric and say that we expect to improve this particular metric by X%, right? One of the other things we are doing is going back to one of the previous slides I showed, that because our focus is now going to be on outcomes and reusability of these technologies, we are developing what's called an SM playbook for manufacturers. What do manufacturers need to do when they begin this journey? What are the tools and techniques available? What are the technologies available from CESMII? What are the examples of how they've been demonstrated and used to make an impact? That's the playbook. And there's a link there, you can go to there. There's some description. Conrad has been at the center of that. You'll get some more information on that particular link. Industry participation in the projects is absolutely critical. It's a requirement, and we are. I shouldn't say it's a requirement. It's highly recommended, but that's one of the selection criteria. And we should also get enough from the proposal team that indicates that you have the commitment from all of the teams, all of the parties, including the industry member, to execute this project. And this is sort of a call out to those that have been involved in our past projects. And if you're encouraged to apply for that first category, where you may perhaps feel that you've got to the point where, like I said, if you just had just a little bit more, you could do significantly more in terms of impacting the CESMII ecosystem. So that's that last bullet there.
Thank you, Haresh.
Yep.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the RFP itself, the timeline. This again is already on the RFP. I just wanted to highlight some key dates. The proposal submission deadline, December 30th. This was basically done on purpose because we know some people would like to have the extra time during the holidays to do this. And we saw that in previous RFPs, so that's the reason why we decided to do that. We are planning to have a selection announcement around February. We don't know exactly which date, but we feel that that's a good month to do that, and give us plenty of time to go through the selection and the notifications. And then the expected project launch will be around April, May. Some projects, if you've been familiar with CESMII and some of the previous projects, you notice that not all the projects start at the same time. So we might be starting some projects in April and maybe the last ones in May. So just a quick note there. In terms of the general information, we wanted to capture this for your reference. Everything is pretty much in here. All the links, like where the templates are. There is a place where you can send questions and answers. We have some platform documents also that you can refer to if you need to. The dates are captured here again for your reference. And then, if you need, again, any information, anything else that we're missing, please send that question to us and we'll respond as soon as we can. In terms of the process, we are following the process that we have established.
Miguel, just one thing on the previous slide. We just, I think we kind of want to stress that the deadline for submission is the end of December. So we've given you sufficient time here, knowing that there are holidays and stuff coming up. So, and yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Harish. Yeah. And so we're talking about the process. So we are following basically the process that has been approved by the DOE. There's nothing new here. If you're familiar with the process, well, this the same thing. We have the RFP development. We issue the RFP. The only thing that changes is really just the time between these different phases, depending on the type of projects that we get. So we're going to go through. We are right here at the beginning. We issue the RFP. Now we're going to go through the project review and selection as soon as we get those proposals in. And that will take us, we're expecting to go through the selection, the contract, in roughly between 16 to 20 weeks. That could change. It could be a little bit earlier, depending on how fast we move through the process. But those are, I would say, more realistic dates based on our history as well. And then the execution, we're hoping that these projects will be completed within 9 to 12 months. Depending on the type of projects, it could be even be sooner, could be 6 months, but we don't know yet. But for now, we're targeting 9 to 12 months for completing these projects. Now, in terms of the criteria that we're going to be following to select the projects, there's some basic rules that we follow, like Harish was mentioned at the beginning, the percentage improvements in energy reduction, productivity. Those are the high levels, and they have to align with the CESMII targets and objectives. So the business impact and the general criteria is very important. The technical significance, the type of technologies that will be developed in each project is important. Is it reusable? Does it have a lot of benefits, not only for a few members, but for all the industries? So things like that are the ones that we're considering in the general criteria. The execution, making sure that we have some good, solid objectives and scopes for every one of the projects. Deliverables are clear. And then we have another area, which is the technical evaluation. This one has to do primarily making sure that whatever is being developed follows the areas of interest of the RFP. In this case, we only have 2. So making sure your proposals are aligned to those 2 areas. And the more aligned they are, obviously, you have a better chance of scoring high in this technical evaluation. The technical approach, again, is how you getting this problem resolved, who you're working with, your team, involving the industry, like I said, industry participation. And if you don't have an industry participation, having a very clear reason why, so the project is strong and compelling. So that's what we're looking here when it comes to the technical evaluation. And then the portfolio selection. Obviously, this is a tricky one because we might have 20 projects and they're all good and they're all meeting the technical and the general criteria. So it's going to be up to CESMII at this point to make sure that we picked those projects that are completely or more aligned with the entire portfolio of projects that we have. I show you at the beginning the 50 plus projects that we have in our portfolio, and every one of them is contributing one way or another to increasing, everything that we have in CESMII in terms of technology, solutions, applications, and things like that. So we'll be looking for that under the portfolio selection to make sure that we cover those gaps that we might have in our portfolio. All right, let's keep going. In terms of the expectations from our proposal, well, we wanted to summarize it here and give it to you so you know what we're going to be looking for at the beginning. A clear problem statement is very important. Okay, the objectives have to be there, very clear, telling us exactly why you're doing it, what the problem is, how are you solving that problem, how you are proposing to solve the problem, the impact that you're going to have, not only in your organization or the industry that you selected, but overall, are there any other things that we need to take a look and see what the impact is. The different tools that will be developed, different applications, all of that has to be very clear in the proposal to make it even stronger. The impact and benefits, again, it's key for us. There's a specific section in the RFP where you need to list those. We also have a place on the quad chart where we want you to list those benefits and the impact. The deliverables, this is one that we struggled the most in previous RFPs, making sure that when you give us your deliverables that they're smart. Okay, there has to be specific, measurable, attainable, time bound, relevant. All of that, it's important because sometimes we see deliverables that don't meet this requirement. So please take some time to make sure that whatever deliverable you're listing on your proposal follows this specific request. The budget. How much will it cost? Your labor, material, software, and travel has to be specific. And then Howard is going to talk later on about the cost share, so that's part of it as well. And the team, be specific on the roles and responsibilities of each of your team members. That's important for us because it tells us who's doing what. Okay, you might have a lot of deliverables. We need to know who's doing each of them, and that's important for us when we know the level of engagement that you have from the different teams. In terms of the actual submission requirements, I listed the different documents that you need to be aware of in responding to this proposal. Obviously, the first one is the RFP. And this is what we've been going through, and some of the specific information that you need to respond to the RFP will be there. But in addition to that, we also have this other document, which we call the Roadmap Projects and Request for Proposals Appendix. This one has a lot of information that we need to consider as you provide proposals for this RFP. These are the ones that talk about, who's eligible, cost share. A lot of that information is in here. It's very standard. That's why we didn't capture it in the RFP itself. But the RFP and the appendix are one document. That's the way we see it. So please take some time to read the appendix, because it's going to give you the rules for submitting the proposal, the legality of the different things that we need to see there. Okay, and then we have two templates. Rachel's mentioned the two areas of interest. We developed one template for each of those two areas. One is the extended impact project proposal, and the other one is the industry demonstration project proposal template. Now, you might, if you open both documents, and we're not going to do that here, but let me just tell you what the difference is. They're very similar. The only difference is in when you talked about the extended impact project proposal, there's a section there where we want you to elaborate a little bit on the previous project that you're going to be tackling. For example, if you said, oh, well, we did this project, we finished it, this is what happened, these are the results. We are giving you a section there where you can explain where the results of the projects are, and then build upon that in terms of your new proposal. Harish mentioned, like, okay, yeah, we finished the project, which I wish we had a little bit of extra time, or a little bit of extra money, or a little bit of extra resources to do this other part that we didn't get to do because of the constraints of the previous RFP. So now you can mention that in here on the template itself, and then provide the background for the new proposal. That's very key in terms of the extended impact projects. And then we also have at the bottom the quad chart. This is just capturing basically a summary of your proposal. It talks about the problem, the technical approach. It talks also about the matrix that you're going to be following, your team, who's involved in the project, and a listing of all the milestones. So a lot of information here, documents that you need to be familiar with as you move on and decide to respond to the RFP. In terms of cost share, this is where Howard comes into place. So he's going to help us to understand a little bit. And then once he finishes, I believe we have plenty of time for questions and answers. So.
Thanks, Miguel. So since CESMII is a public-private partnership, we have this requirement of cost share. So what cost share is an in-kind contribution, or a donation, or a co-investment, basically. So if for every dollar we get from DOE of every real dollar of funding we get from DOE, we have to match it with a cost share or co-investment. And this requirement flows down to the project team. So for example, if a project team is awarded $100,000 of federal funding, they must also provide $100,000 of matching cost share in-kind investments. So there's a lot of hyperlinks here that you can reference in this document after the call, and we're happy to answer any questions after the call. But examples of cost share are personnel costs you're not getting reimbursed for, they'll be applied to the project, raw materials or supplies, any procured hardware or software from a third party, any value of a third party service like consulting services that you're not getting reimbursed for a project. There's also, for certain very specific situations, and we request that you talk to us well ahead of time, we can, in certain very specific situations, if you're running simulated production, we can count the cost of running simulated production as cost share. It can't be live production, it has to be simulated production. If you think your projects are going to get involved with this, please talk to us ahead of time and we can work you through the details. But these are some examples of these in-kind contributions that dollar for dollar match the real federal dollars you're going to get from CESMII on your project. Cost share cannot include any construction costs or building costs. So next slide, we try to show a hypothetical example. So we have a project team made up of 3 members, an application vendor, a manufacturer, a system integrator, and the cost share requirement is done at the team level. It doesn't have to be done by every individual. So on the table on the bottom, you can see the system integrator, or the SI, is fully getting the $100,000 of federal funding, the green dollars, where their partner, the application vendor, and the manufacturer are contributing the $100,000 of cost share. So at the team level, the federal dollars are matched by the cost share dollars, though the individuals don't have that one-to-one matching necessarily. So in this hypothetical example, the application vendor is providing some of the proprietary software, but it's valued at $0 of cost share. Proprietary software or hardware does not count towards cost share. And we bring this up as an example because it's a standard issue that comes up by the project teams. But the application vendor is paying third-party cloud storage services, and they're paying for a third-party software license like MATLAB that's going to be used for the project. Those costs can be counted as cost share. The manufacturer is contributing cost share by some engineering labor that they're not going to get reimbursed for. They're applying to the project. They are doing a simulated production run. So they talked to us ahead of time. They met the criteria. The cost of running the simulated production run contributes cost share. And in running simulated production, they're going to consume $5,000 of packaging supplies they're not going to get reimbursed for, counted towards cost share. So this shows how cost share can be done at a team level. On the next slide. So for the manufacturer that's contributing the engineering labor, we wanted to show that there is some leverage here in getting a fringe rate that can mark up your labor, as well as an indirect rate that can mark up your labor that helps meet your cost share dollars. So in this case, the manufacturer is contributing 2 engineers, and their actual labor dollars are just under $19,000, their payroll labor. But they worked with CESMII and the DOE, and they got an approved 25% fringe benefit rate markup that marks up the labor further. In addition, they worked with CESMII and DOE to get an improved indirect rate or overhead markup, so that roughly $19,000 of payroll labor got marked up to $35,000 of cost share. On the next slide, for the application vendor, they're spending $30,000 of out-of-pocket costs for cloud storage and software license, and that gets marked up by an indirect rate that they negotiated with CESMII and DOE for $45,000 worth of software of cost share valuation. So these slides are trying to show the value of working with CESMII and DOE to get an indirect fringe markup for any labor you want to apply to cost share, and any overhead markup for both labor and out-of-pocket costs. So the next slide talks about how to get into these fringe rates. So there's 3 options for the fringe rate. If you've done other government work and you have an approved government rate from the Department of Defense or Department of Commerce or DOE, you can show that report with us and we can use that rate for this work. If you don't, that's fine. This hyperlink here shows us there's a simple worksheet that you can go through to calculate your indirect rate and then get CESMII approval. And our financial team can help you with that if you have any questions. Or you don't have to do any fringe rate markup if you don't want to. So that's up to you. And similarly, in the next slide shows how you can calculate your overhead rate or your indirect rate. Again, if you already have an indirect rate you negotiated with a government agency, share that report with us. We can use that rate. If not, this hyperlink document in number 2, there's a worksheet to help you calculate your rate, and we can work with you. You don't feel like doing any calculations, you can just say, I want to do the de minimis, which is 10%, no calculation required. You just need to check that box, and you just go with the default 10% markup, or you can choose not to do any rate markup if you don't want to. So again, a lot of information here. There are some hyperlink documents that can help you. We're happy to help through. We can set up a call afterwards and help you through this stuff, but it's all doable. We've done with many project teams before. It's just a nuance of government funding, this cost share or co-investment aspect. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Miguel.
Thank you, Howard. That was great. Just let me stop this really quick. We have enough time right now for questions, and just please keep in mind that even if we run out of time, you still have the option to send your questions directly to us, and we will get to those as soon as possible. So let's start with the questions. Let me see what we have.
Miguel, there were a few questions that we were able to answer online, so maybe you want to read those first for the benefit of the others, if you click on the answered questions.
Okay. The first one is, I have great ideas for industry demonstration projects. I am an MEP center. How can I better identify team candidates? You said the answer is here?
No. I was first referring to the other one. That's okay. We can take this one first. So Radu, I think a couple of avenues there, and I'll have others chime in from the CESMII team. But since you're already an MEP center, you are welcome to just look at your own networks of manufacturers that belong to your MEP and gather them around. There's also other possibilities where you might want to talk to our Smart Manufacturing Innovation Centers. They have their regional networks of manufacturers and partners that you can leverage. And then if you have any specific, you are members, so you will have access to at least who the members are in CESMII. Through one channel or another. So you might want to say, if there's a specific area that you're looking for in terms of expertise, you should be able to reach out to them directly. And Howard and Miguel, if you have other ideas, please chime in on that.
I think that's the right answer.
Yep.
Seems like Radu has a question also on indirect rates, but I don't know if we can turn his mic on or.
Yeah, we can have somebody do that. John or Tara.
He should be able to talk now.
Yeah, there you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So I'm Radu Pavel from Pixel. Thank you for the presentation. This was great. I guess one question related to being an MEP and member was, can this team be made out of SMMs only, for example? Typically, I know larger teams are encouraged. Let's say a larger company, maybe academia, maybe a nonprofit, maybe some small and medium size. Is there a particular preference, or as long as the goal of the request for proposals is achieved, teams that are maybe smaller in size or only include small and medium size would be acceptable?
Well, so I'm assuming that this would be centered around the second type of project, which is the industry demonstration projects. And one of the focus areas there, Radu, is that we're trying to get the supply chain aspect focused. So, if you don't have a large manufacturer, but you have some way in which you are using the remaining, small, medium manufacturers to still be able to demonstrate as a supply chain, then maybe that's okay.
Okay.
And again, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I have now that I have the hand up, it was about the indirect costs. I was a little bit confused. So let's say we have a approved letter, right, for indirect rates, fringe, overhead, DNA. Before in the proposal, we just use these rates and we submitted, we attached that letter. Now, I did see a line, I think, on a slide that said, do not charge indirect rates. And I was confused. Can we charge or can we not charge? And if we charge indirect rates, do we have limits, even if we have approved indirect rates? I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Right. So some companies choose not to charge it because larger companies don't want to get into the accounting aspect, so they choose not to for some reason. But by all means, you're allowed to charge indirect rates. If you have a previously approved government rates, you can share that with us, and that's the limit. You can't charge more than what's already been approved. If you don't have an approved rate, there's a worksheet that can be used to determine your rates. And then once that's negotiated, you just charge that exact rate. You can't charge more. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. We have we have a question here, actually 2 questions about copies of the slides. Yes, those will be available. The whole deck will be available in our website hopefully soon. So you'll have access to that. Susan has the hands right. John, can you open her mic? There you go. All right, Susan, if you want to go ahead and ask your question then? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Suzanne, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. I think your mic seems to be muted still. Maybe. Not yet.
She's still muted. Well, we can come back to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
There
you go.
This is Ala and not Susan. But I have 2 questions. One is, if for different industries we may have a different value proposition, would it make sense for us to submit several proposals from the same company? Is it acceptable? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. There's no limit to how many you can submit.
Okay, and then we also, thank you. We also may have different companies representing the industry, but some are US based, some are not. In terms of potential clients, would that matter or not? US based business.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a statement, and then I'm glad that Howard is on the line because he can set me straight. But the focus of the institute is to make sure that the first demonstrations are always in the US. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of companies that have overseas operations, and there's a process for it, for them to be active on a project, and I'll let Howard expand on that.
Yeah, so if one of your project partners is a large US multinational, like a Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, that we have to have it demonstrated first in their US site before it can go to an international site. There's a approval process for that. That's one situation. Mm-hmm. If your partner is purely a foreign company that's not a US multinational, then they cannot be part of the project team. That's just part of this US government funding. The project teams have to be US-based companies. They do allow US multinationals, but they have to be US-based companies.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Makes sense.
All right. Let's move on to the next question. It says, would it make more sense for us to send CESMII team a white paper and see if the proposal idea is aligned with the RFP in the eyes of CESMII?
I think in an ideal world, yes, but unfortunately, we don't have that luxury this time in terms of timing. We are actually constrained by some timing issues with this particular round. So unfortunately not.
Yes, and in fact, if you see the previous RFPs, I think we had 1 or 2 where we requested white papers. not on this one. All right, let's move on to the next question. I think that's it for now. Let me go back to the ones that were answered that you were saying, Haresh, maybe for the
actually, let's see if Suzanne can be unmuted if she has a question.
Susan, are you still with us?
Okay, well, let's carry on with the others in the meantime.
Okay, let me go through all the answer questions. Did the slide say proposal submission deadline 12/30/2023? Is it? It should be 2022. If it's 2023, that's definitely wrong. Yeah, but it's 12/30/2022.
That's a lot of time. So yeah.
Okay, the other one was if we do have any industry partnership, would that affect our inability? This is it's about having. I think you mentioned it, Haresh, that we do want industry partners in every one of these proposals.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a case where the content of your proposal or the flavor of your proposal prevents you from doing that somehow. But again, because we are looking for industry demonstration, it would certainly put you at a disadvantage against the other applicants. So again, I want to be transparent here and not raise hopes in that case. So.
But just to be clear, I mean, we had in the past proposals with no industry partners, and those were evaluated. So again, it might put you at a disadvantage, but it doesn't exclude you from participating and hopefully being selected. All right. I think we answered the other ones. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so slides will be available. I think several of you have asked that. We've answered some of the other questions live. So, yeah.
All right, let's give Susan another chance. Susan, if you can hear us, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
One new question has popped up. Can the industry partner and the small manufacturing enterprise be the same entity? Yeah, I mean, with the exception that, if you're doing a supply chain project, then you want to make sure that somehow you're demonstrating that aspect, the supply chain aspect of it. So.
Yeah. I do have a question for you, Haresh. Maybe this will help the team and maybe it'll come up later. We have many projects that are getting close to completion. On the continuation projects, do the projects have to be finished before they can submit a new proposal, or can they be close to it? I mean, can they use an existing project that is not 100% completed?
They can. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that, but the clarity has to be there as to what will be accomplished in the existing project and what will be done in the new project. That has to be very clear cut.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you can't use the extended funding to finish up what you didn't do. So,
of course not.
Yeah. It'll be hard for us to justify. So.
No, but we do have quite a few projects that are coming to completion, so we want to use that opportunity.
No, it's a fair question. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Let's see. Nope. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I'd want to thank Haresh and Howard for joining us. And this is one of the key elements of CESMII to go through this process. So it's very important. We're very excited. We're hoping that we're going to get a lot of proposals. Please reach out to any of us or send your questions directly to us if you have any questions, any issues. We're here to help as much as we can and hopefully give you the clarity that you need to provide strong proposals. So with that, I thank you. Thank the rest of the team. Thank you, Tara and John, for helping us put this together. I appreciate it. And they will be also uploading the recording to the website, as well as the presentation that you saw today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.